Hey folks, and welcome to a brand new video of Wheels of Mercury. A very late video. I promised to do this video probably almost a week ago, and I'm only getting to it now. But here we are. I'm going to talk about the releases I loved in the summer of 2023. Now, the time span of releases is based on this holiday in Canada that we have around the 24th of May, which is kind of like the unofficial start of summer for us Canadians. It's called Victoria Day, and it's around the 24th. So anywhere between any album or any EP released between May 24th and September 22nd applies to this whole list that I have in front of me. We're gonna kick things off with Einar Solberg 16. For those of you who do not know who Einar Solberg is, he is the singer of progressive rock and metal band Leprous, and he has an amazing voice. He's one of the best singers I've ever heard. His songs have pretty much stayed in rotation with me all summer. He's had guests from his buddy and half-brother Ethan from Emperor, the drummer from Agent Fresco, and Ben Levin from Tenhi. So he got a lot of guests in this album. It's a really well written album. I think for all of you prog nerds, I think you should all check this out. Next up is an album that has become a comfort for me in the grieving of my grandfather, who passed away this summer. This is a Finnish folk album by the band Tenhi called Valkama. Now, I don't know Finnish. It's not my native language, so I don't know what the heck they're saying. But this album was a comfort for me during the days after my grandfather died. It had an emotional sadness to it, and I'm glad I discovered the band around that time, and because it really got me through heartbreak and grief, and that I'm still processing to this day. This album has been a comfort for me, so I don't know how to say thank you in Finnish, but thank you guys for creating this album and being a comfort for me in the stages of grief. Alright, we're gonna lighten the mood because the next album is King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard's 24th album and second metal album, PetroDragonic Apocalypse. I'm not gonna say the rest of that because it's such a long title. Anyways, this album is a blast. These guys, for being a non-metal band, they sure know how to play metal. It's got a mixture of like Tool and Rob Zombie and High on Fire, but if they were environmentally conscious, and if they also just like Dragon that much. Like this album had a story, a central theme that I could have written because I'm very passionate about the environment. And I'm also very passionate about dragons, so it's like a match made in heaven for me. So, yeah, PetroDragonic Apocalypse is probably one of the best albums of the year for me, so, yeah, it's fun, it's awesome. The next is by a Slovakian metal band, a black metal band actually, called Stangarigel, and their EP, Metafyzika, barbarstva. I screwed that one up, didn't I? Anyways, this album is like folky, sort of, think like Bird Tat from Oliver, or like a less sketchy, like kind of ambient nocturnal mortem-esque, but like not with the sketchy parts at all. It's pretty folky and very atmospheric and ambient, and I think people that like summoning and nocturnal mortem without the catchy parts will love it. Will love this like fantasy inspired, like I don't know if it's fantasy inspired, but you know what I mean. Will like this folky black metal sort of thing. It's pretty good. It's like, you know, it transports you to like a fantasy world, and it's pretty well done. Let's check it out if you like black metal. Next is Life is But a Dream by Avenged Sevenfold. Yup. I love this album. Your eyes are not deceiving me. I love it so much. It reminds me of Mr. Bungle, Phantom Ass, and Faith No More all rolled up into one. And I love how strange it is. I love how meme-worthy it was when it came out. When it's like, build stronger, build higher, build wider, build. That part is so funny. I love how the album is actually like an album. It's not like just songs you can throw on. You actually have to listen to it from top to bottom to really appreciate it. And it was a surprise for me because I'm not usually an Avenged Sevenfold fan at all. And I think this album right here really made me appreciate Avenged Sevenfold so much more as a band. So yeah, Life is But a Dream. Great record. The next three records are three records that came out on my birthday, actually. First off, starting with Spirit Adrift with Ghost at the Gallows. This is a heavy metal album influenced by Mastodon, Metallica, and Iron Maiden, basically. And it got very good melody. The riff in You Can't Stop Me reminds me of Mastodon a lot. And yeah, it's just solid heavy metal inspired by Nate Garrett's grieving process and all that. Where the last year just been a hallmark, just one grief-inducing moment after another. I can really relate to that because it's been a kind of a strange year for me outside of Wheels of Mercury. Next up is Horrendous with Ontological Mysterium. This is an amazing progressive death metal album. One of the best progressive death metal albums this year. And it got elements of like later era death, Rush, and all these other different elements in a blender to create this album. The hooks keep on coming with the album. The jams are awesome. One of the jams that goes sounds like a Saturday morning cartoon theme song. It's pretty cool. And also the refrain and Cult of Shadowwork saying, "Pull me back, but I keep on driving." Oh, so good. So good. So yeah, Horrendous, Ontological Mysterium. So the next is bound to be probably played in Halloween, and that is Blut aus Nord with Disharmonium Nahab, a sequel to last year's Disharmonium Undreamable Abysses. Like that last album, this album is inspired by classic and problematic author H.P. Lovecraft. And just like the last album, it does a great job of capturing the horrors of Lovecraft, like unimaginable creatures from beyond the stars and the depths of the sea. My only complaint is that the drums kind of don't feel as baked into the equation as the last album, but it's still a really good album, albeit really, really scary. First time I heard it, I was eating lunch with it, and my imagination just went wild. It was like all these horror movie plots inside my head, and it was really creepy. The next album I'm going to talk about is Miserere Luminis with their album Ordalie. This French-Canadian black metal band has a member of Gris, G-R-I-S, which is one of my favorite depressive black metal bands ever. And I think it's the guitar player from Somewhere for that. So this is one of the best atmospheric black metal albums of the year, in my honest opinion. It's got incredible melancholic moments and piano that bookends the album. The pain shrieks from, I think it's the guy from Somewhere for that or Gris. I could be wrong. It could be either band that's playing. that's doing the vocals. Could be either guy. But regardless, it's great to hear the guy from Grimoire Project again. And yeah, it's really good. If you like atmospheric / depressive black metal, like, what's the band's name? Nocturnal Depression. That's who it is. Nocturnal Depression. If you like Nocturnal Depression and Die Light and all that, you should check it out there. Next is an album from my favorite band of all time. And that is Asking Alexandria with their album Where Do We Go From Here. I just reviewed this. And I gave it a 3 out of 5. Which I thought was a decent album. It's not my favorite album in 2023, but it's probably going to be my most played because, duh, it's Asking Alexandria. Of course it's going to be played multiple times throughout the year. I'm probably gonna play it like multiple times because I just love the music that Danny Worsnop and Ben Bruce and the rest of the guys from Asking have put out all throughout the years. So I guess you could say I'm a ride or die Asking Alexandria stan. I guess you could say that. Alright, we're going to switch it up to neofolk actually. The next album I'm going to talk about the neofolk album by Rome, aka Jerome Rutter from Luxembourg. And his new album over here is Gates of Europe, inspired by the current Ukrainian conflict that is going on right now. I'm not going to get into the whole sort of conflict stuff, but I have to admit this is a very well composed record. And yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna spill the beans on anything else. Just if you like neofolk with militaristic themes and all that, and you know, if you like stuff like Dernier Volonté and stuff like that, you can check it out if you want. If you don't want to check it out, if you find it too niche, that's okay too. Do what thou wilt. Next up is my second DSBM depressive black metal inspired album, Nahab, with their album Inevitable. Now these guys are probably my favorite depressive black metal band because they do not play live. They do not use names, and they do not, especially, and this is an important part, they do not use triggering imagery in their album cover. Look, it's just a burnt forest that they use. They're just like, here's a landscape, use your imagination. I wholeheartedly support that. It's very much more of an ambient album. It almost reminds me of Burzum's Philosophem. And if you know Philosophem, you know that it is as much as an ambient album as it is a black metal album. Same here, although these guys have pretty much known that they are big fans of Burzum by covering one of his Dungeon Synth tracks in the past. So if you like, you know, like Glee, and you like Philosophem by Burzum and Hivat Lights Taras by Burzum, check this out. The next album I'm going to talk about is George Clanton with his album Ooh Rapaya. This album is kinda like a vaporwave album, but it's a chillwave album, but it's kind of inspired by the baggy movement of the late 80s and early 90s over in Britain. If you like the Stone Roses, if you're a British guy who likes the Stone Roses, a British person who remembers that whole baggy movement, I don't remember it because I'm Canadian. But if you do remember it, then you'll have a great time with this record. But I won't just limit this to just British people. If you're looking for some chill, summery jams, check this out. You'll have fun with it. Alright, now, I have two albums that are on the opposite side, religious-wise. And they both have similar names. First up, Witch Hazel with their album For Sacrament, the Christian band. And Wytch's Moon from Columbus, Ohio, with their album Grimoire 1 Abrahadabra. Now, Wytch Hazel is an amazing band. They sort of put together amalgamations of Iron Maiden, Boston, and Fleetwood Mac, basically. I personally don't identify as a Christian anymore, but you know, if Christian music is this well composed, I'll give it a listen. Don't simply judge the band by the lyrics, because they can make a catchy tune. Also, if you have parents or grandparents that are very Christian, and they say stuff like, metal is satanic, show them this band to prove that actually some of those bands do spread the word of God, you know? Alright, on to the other side. Wytch's Moon, Grimoire 1 Abrahadabra, is raw, like Misfits, Samhain-esque goth rock. It's really good, and it's really rawly composed by one guy. And it's very gothic doom metal. I think those who like Typo Negative and Samhain and Danzig when Glenn was the vocalist will find a lot to love here. You can check this out. Next up is actually a band I've seen live, and this is Metafyzika with their album Hive Mind Narcosis. Now I saw these guys live recently, and they were pretty good, man. Like, they played with the Cloaks and the Fog Machine. These songs must have taken them so long to practice and stuff, because it's all this dissonant, like, kind of horror movie-esque guitar riffage, and they have this one song called Solar Witch where it like speeds up and then slows back down and then speeds up again. It's pretty crazy. For those of you who love like Deathspell Mega or Portal, I think you guys should check this out. Moving on in the vein of avant-garde black metal, Victory Over the Sun, Dance You Monster, to my soft song. This is Vivian Tylinka's first ever excursion outside of using microtonal tuning, and it's just as fantastic as her stuff with microtonal tuning. It's very much indebted to Death Heaven as it is to Meshuggah. She's quite a composer. I saw her interview with Beaver Marsh. Shout out to Beaver Marsh for being a real one. She mentioned being influenced by Hela Hunt Hendricks from Liturgy. Liturgy is her favorite band of all time, and I love Liturgy, so I can clearly see the Liturgy influence on this album. Yeah, it's a mind-bending sort of experimental black metal album, and yeah, don't take my words for it, just check it out. The next experimental black metal album I'm going to talk about is Tenhi with Upal. Now, the last EP I covered very briefly, I forget when on my channel, but I covered him last year. He did a sort of Deathspell Mega take on Turkish folk music. He continued that exploration with like Turkish folk music on this album too, but it's still a black metal album. It's warm and kind of avant-garde. Things like Rotting Christ, or even better actually, Necromantia. Any of the Greek bands, if they tried to do a Deathspell Mega or Portal album. So, yeah, pretty out there. We're going to thrash metal now with Cruel Force's Dawn of the Act. This is the German band's first album in like 12 years, and it rips, man. It's full of speedy riffage. You could easily put this within the realms of 1984 to like 86, and it would have fit in perfectly with all those thrash bands from that era. I think people who love Celtic Frost, early Slayer, and like Destruction and all that will love this album. It's awesome. Next up is one of my favorite death metal albums of the year from a guy who doesn't really listen to death metal as often anymore. The Venus Passage with their album Data Lithium. This album had ex-members of the Faithless, who I love, so I had to check this out. And this is like a tech death album. I'm not usually into technical death metal, but these guys make it catchy. A lot like Archfire, and I adore tech death bands that make their albums catchy. If you're tired of tech death being just like check out this Venus Passage record. It's very, very good. Next up is Anti-God-Hand, their album Bright Year. This is a solo black metal project. I forget what the guy's name is right now, but he enlisted the help of former Liturgy drummer Greg Fox. Greg Fox did a great job on this album. This album was inspired by the wildfire season last year that British Columbia experienced. It's a very different take on black metal that sort of mixes in gent and like Meshuggah type grooves with like Liturgy and Death Heaven. Sort of like Victory Over the Sun, but not as avant-garde. So yeah, Anti-God-Hand, very good. The next album I'm going to talk about is from a Canadian band right nearby me. Tomb Mold was their album The Enduring Spirit. Tomb Mold takes a sort of a left turn from the conventional style into like progressive death metal, and it works well for them. It's got elements of like Cynic and the Tomb Mold side project Dream Unending that really works well in their favor. I'm pretty sure, for me at least, this is gonna be viewed as their best record because they've finally grown out of the cocoon of being swampy, brutal death metal and have emerged into this kaleidoscopic, twisted, screwed up butterfly that make noises. And I don't know why I did that, but I was trying to be like a butterfly, proboscis or however you say it. Anyways, they came out of their shell with this one, and it's awesome to see them experiment. So yeah, Tomb Mold. If you like progressive death metal like Cynic and you want it a little more heavier than Cynic, check out the new Tomb Mold record. Speaking of bands that are progressive, yet they are very popular in the death metal underground, Blood Incantation's Luminis Bridge. Probably my favorite short release of the year so far. Oh my goodness. When I heard it, I had to post a short about this thing. And my short got over 558 views on the video. Thank you so much for that. And I still think it's one of the best short releases of this year. Part 1 of the release is a death metal track, and part 2 is an ambient track. But both of them are done so well. It's really, really good. New Blood Incantation, 2-parter. Next, we're going back to neofolk with Unto Ashes' new album, Wytches Grew Here. Now, this album is very foggy in tone. It's very gothic, but I love it. And it even has a cover of Frozen by Madonna on here that's done very well. Speaking of Madonna, I wonder if Wyatt Sim, whom I'm subscribed to, I wonder if he's heard this album because he's a big Madonna fan. And he's also a neofolk fan. So I wonder if he's heard this record. I hope he has. Anyways, if you're into like Death in June, but you don't really want all the controversy around Death in June, and I don't blame you, check this out. It's even got a song that kind of sounds like mid-90s Death in June. So yeah, check out Unto Ashes, Wytches Grew Here. Alright, next up is some killer US style power metal in Helm's Deep and their album Treacherous Ways. This is a pretty aggressive, cool little album. Well, not little, I think it's like almost an hour. It's a cool album, Matt. It's heavy, kind of like Judas Priest and Painkiller. A little bit. If you like your US power metal like Liege Lord and Crimson Glory, you're gonna like this. And I actually can envision Dragon Force in an alternate reality, somewhat sounding like this, but with a little bit more from Herman Lee and Sam Topman. So yeah, you gotta check this out if you like US power metal. It has slowly become one of my favorite traditional heavy metal albums of the year. Next up is the Greek anarchist black metal band Calypso with their album Dawn of Defiance. Now, I don't know the lyrics of this album, but the vocal performance tells me that this guy is really desperate for something to change. I mean, the song collapse of protesters marching in the rain and speeches in Greek sort of brings off that vibe of people wanting things to change, and I don't blame them. I identify with Calypso's politics personally, but it's a great record, very emotional. Yeah, I'll keep on listening to it as time goes on. The last album this list, before I get to the growers and outliers section, is Cannibal Corpse with their album Chaos Horrific. Well, I think I'm gonna say one thing. This is a Cannibal Corpse album. If you like Cannibal Corpse, you'll like this album. Moving on, Growers and Outliers. Now, these are albums that didn't necessarily come within the time frame that I told you about at the beginning of the video, but they are worth shouting out as albums that caught me by surprise and that are released outside of the time frame. We're starting off with a couple of releases from the same guy in Aldridge's Folklore from Farther Out. This is atmospheric black metal with dark folk elements in them, and it's very wintry, it's very good. I also loved Albionic Hermeticism, which is his side project. Nova Nativitas Mundi. I think one of the albums was shown by Simon over at Explosive Action, who had a vinyl copy of the record, and it inspired me to give this record another listen. I'm gonna have to warn you, I heard this guy's kind of sketchy from hearsay on Rate Your Music. I'm not gonna confirm it or deny it, but he's been banned off of Bandcamp once, and he got on Bandcamp again, only to be banned again. So, if you don't want to listen to Aldridge or Albionic Hermeticism because of that, that's fine. I mean, do as thou wilt with that information. If you want to church it up, go ahead. If you don't want to church it up, that's fine. It's up to you. Now, moving on to something more progressive, Nordheimsgard with their album Black Medium Current. This is one of the best progressive black metal albums of the year, and in my opinion, one of the best albums of the year. I just think this album is very genre pushing and very emotional. It's almost like if Emperor and Leprous combined into one band. It's pretty cool. Yeah, Nordheimsgard with Black Medium Current. Next up is Decipher with Arcane Path to Resurrection. This is cleanly produced black and death metal, or just black metal. That is very well played and very synced. I think it's all just ends in like 36 minutes. It's all killer, no filler, and it's on Transcending Obscurity Records, which is a very good record label out of India. If you like Belphegor or bands like that, it's not a bad thing to check out. We're moving back to neofolk again with OC and the Jupiter, Theater and Sage, Riders of the Gallows Part 1. This is a very autumnal sounding album, a very atmospheric album. It's a very nighttime album, and it's very woodsy. And the best part is when the guy from Wolfensman, the side project of Winterfire, comes on for vocals. His vocals are so heavenly. Next up, 2 Dungeon Synth albums. First is by Duskbreeder, Hasten the Sundown, which has grown on me since I had him on my Dungeon Synth and Neofolk morning playlist. Melodies have grown on me, and there's even like a black metal inspired guitar part on there. It's kind of cool. The second Dungeon Synth album is Alvin Sorrow's Death Came Thrice, and this is a more traditional Dungeon Synth album. Apparently it has like actual instruments being played. Don't quote me on that, but it's very atmospheric and should give it a try. Next up, Blackblade with Blackblade 2, who I will see or I will have seen by the time this video gets up on YouTube. I thought it was okay when I first listened to it, but it's slowly growing on me. It sounds a lot like the first album, but that's not a bad thing. Algol was Night Eternal. This new Algo album is pretty jungle inspired. Not the genre, jungle themed a lot. It's a pretty unique spin on black metal. And the last album I will talk about before my voice gives out and I have to drink some water is Great Pilgrim's The Bigotry of Purpose. True to this mini album review of this Great Pilgrim record, the vocalist, he must have shot his throat between the making of Molten Hands Reach West, which was my favorite EP of last year, and this album, because on this album his voice is like shot. He can barely scream. I don't think it's as good as the EP. I think his voice got shot. It has more punkisms and more like crust punk era Dark Throne in there, and it has a woman singing in I think track 1 and track 6. I'm gonna have to look it up again, but she sings in a couple tracks and she has this kind of old school, like old-timey sort of voice. Great Pilgrim, The Bigotry of Purpose. If you like raw melodic black metal, check it out. Alright, so my voice is on the verge of giving out. Those are all the releases I loved in the summer of 2023. What are the releases you loved in the summer of 2023? Put it down below in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Rock on, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.